Running our own business isn't easy, and it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And on ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things just that little bit easier by interviewing guests who have been where you are now, regardless of where you are on the scale-up journey, and maybe facing some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked well for them, as well as what didn't, of course. And we've also combined many of these lessons into a practical scale-up handbook called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And there's details of this at the end of the episode. So welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Today, we will be going through my thoughts and structures from the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System around cohesive teams. And then we're going to have some great insights from Andy Thorne from Factory Pattern Limited, who's our guest speaker. So this month, we're going to take a look at cohesive teams, specifically at the 5 key behaviors developed, identified by Patrick Lencioni in the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. According to Ed Catmull, who's the president of Pixar, getting the right people and the right chemistry is more important than the right idea. So in Bismarck, we have many different examples of effective teams, and some of our clients, the effectiveness of the teams becomes a really distinctive competitive advantage. And in a small and medium-sized business, competitive advantage is what you're after, and that's how you can outgrow and outdo the larger businesses, because there's real opportunities of team focus and cohesion. And we know in order to scale beyond the 8 to 12 level, people have to avoid the business being over-reliant on us, the business owners, and we don't want to get caught in the owner's trap. So we need to help develop teams so they can work together, as well as taking on more people. We need to effectively build those teams so they don't just become a management burden for the business. However, good strategy is, no matter how good it is, without a good team, it won't go any further. So people are the magic ingredient that makes the great company, and people can equally become the biggest headache. So a good set of people and culture is really what we're after. And it is hard, and we do recognize that. The feedback that we get from our surveys is getting the right staff to think and act for themselves and take responsibility that the way that you would is cited as the number one challenge as businesses scale above the 300,000 turnover. And we know this is right in terms of doing that, and why it's so important is significant. So if you're wondering whether the importance of engagement is impact the bottom line, then Gallup have done their surveys, and their researches show the most engaged teams result in a 41% lower absenteeism, 10% higher customer satisfaction, and a 21% higher profitability. So getting the team dynamic right is really important in any size of business. Now, I'm sure I can tell you all to think of examples where you have led or even been in a team that worked really well, and equally the ones that haven't. In fact, a very simple and powerful exercise that you could do within your business with your teams is to get everybody to brainstorm what characteristics make a great team, what characteristics hinder a great team. And don't just do it as a theoretical exercise. We always recommend what you should do is actually talk about the experiences you've each had in a really good team and a really good experience in a poor team. And maybe don't always think about work teams, think about other types of teams that maybe you're in, maybe a sports team, maybe in a club, and really tease out that sort of best practice that you could all create, and also best practice of not what a team should do, and create your charter for your team, for your organization in terms of how you'll work together. But before we go into the details of cohesive teams, I just want to talk a little bit about team size. So the great idea from Jeff Bezos is the 2 pizza rule. Okay, so it's this typical sort of size of a team that could be fed by two pizzas, and it's essentially what's behind the concept in our scale-up journey. Because actually, as your business grows, you can't manage just one big team. You've got to start breaking them into other size teams, and getting that ideal number right is really important. So the 2 pizza rule is a way of thinking about it, and basically what that's saying from all the research that's been conducted is that actually the ideal number is somewhere around sort of 6. So you need more than 3 to make a team and to get that collective organization. It peaks around sort of 6, and beyond there, the complexity of managing the coordination, the motivation starts to get lost in terms of doing things. So as we scale, we need to keep this idea of this ideal size of our teams between 4 to 6. There are many different models then to describe the effectiveness and cohesiveness in teams with many things that do. So one we specifically use is the 5 dysfunctions of a team by Patrick Lencioni. And it spells out these key structures that I'll take you through, but it's a function around how the team grows and develops together. And it gives you a sort of a roadmap to start to think about how do you develop your teams. So I'm just going to give you a quick pass through in terms of the model, and then we'll just explore it a little bit more in detail. So it starts with trust, then it moves on to mastering conflict, and then achieving commitment, embracing accountability, and then finally the focus on results. And each of the layers builds on the previous one. It's not something you can do to just jump to the top. And to make it really work, team members need to have a sound understanding of themselves as well as their peers. And that's where, with working with Bismarck, we often start with a profiling system. We use DISC in terms of doing that. So let's start with trust. Trust is the foundation of an effective team. If it is lacking in whatever else you try to do, the team, it was like trying to build your team on sand, okay? So if you suspect that there's a lack of trust in your team, then you can feel it and see why it's not going on. Indicators are usually things like, team members holding grudges, avoiding meetings, they huddle together, they cover up in weaknesses and mistakes, etc. And bad trust in the team can lead to an awful lot of wrong type of conflict that you want. But it's easy to build over time, but you can't do it straight away, okay? So we're not going to change it overnight. There are some simple things you can try. You could start with the discussion that we had in terms of what makes a good team, what makes a bad team, and building that team structure around that, okay? So consider maybe even behavioral profiling, etc., in terms of doing that. And the thing about trust, I always talk about in terms of doing that, it's like those little things that you build up over time. So it's like putting marbles in a jar, and like any glass jar, it's easily broke. Okay, so you have to maintain and hold that trust and develop it. Next comes conflict. So now we worked on the trust. Maybe we should just get along without any type of conflict, okay? But actually, that's not what we're talking, okay? We're actually not trying to avoid conflict in terms of that. All great relationships require productive conflict, okay? And with a great team, we're focusing on this word, productive conflict. So it's not about, Lencioni talks about in terms of a conflict spectrum. At one end, you've got the artificial harmony where everybody just keeps doing what they're doing in terms of their real thoughts are hidden and simply just follow the leader with whatever they say. At the other end of the conflict spectrum, we've got the mean-spirited attacks and manipulation and backstabbing. What we actually want is something in the middle, which is constructive conflict. And what we're doing is we're looking at issues and ideas, okay? We're not looking at personalities, okay? So conflict isn't about looking at people and conflicting with them, that it's about looking at the ideas, the opportunities, the things that are going on that we need to focus on. And that's how we then build and grow forward to the next level. Within our Smart90 process and the Smart 7, we have this thing called a challenge solver approach. And it's a method to help teams really sort of manage the activity of conflict and being more focused in terms of what's going on rather than the people and what they're saying. Commitment. If you or as a leader impose our decisions on what we think should be done, the levels of buy-in and commitment are going to be quite poor. If, however, we allow constructive conflict, everyone in the team has their say, how much stronger is that buy-in going to be? Okay, so this is not about consensus. This is not about voting by committee. This is about allowing everybody to have their say and then making a decision and putting it right in terms of what we need to do to go forwards. So going back to conflict, ensuring that everyone's ideas have been come out and addressed. Once everybody has had their say, this is when then you show the leadership and explain why that decision, why we're going to do it the way that we're going to do it. And those that use our Smart90 approach with a supporting business rhythm will understand how we build that commitment and that structure through the 90-day events. And then accountability. Over time, we build on accountability. It's about owning and tracking as a different responsibility. It's about taking that ownership. And Lencioni in his model talks about the willingness of team members to remind one another when they're not living up to the standards they need to be doing. So again, instilling a robust 90-day planning habit, business rhythm structure within that will help to build that accountability and that sharing of common goals and holding each other accountable in terms of achievement. And finally, results. And if we get everything right, the ultimate goal is creating that cohesive team where we get the results we're doing. And a team that's focused on the results way, the team members value that collective success, not just at their team level, but individual level. And they reach out and help each other in terms of ensuring that the results are delivered. And a best way of results is have a scorecard, have a way of seeing that. Every team needs a way of measuring and seeing where they are and how they're achieving. Remember the size of the team, the 2 pizza rule. We start by building trust, and so we can master the conflict and the commitment. Building that trust over time, that vulnerability, and you showing your vulnerability at time is also very important to help build that trust. We want constructive debate. We don't want personal conflict. We want to challenge ideas, not personalities. Commitment is about the clarity, the buy-in, the accountability of our behaviors and not letting our side down in terms of doing things. And then the results are what we then focus on collectively together. And our Smart90 methodology will help bring all of those things together in terms of thinking about cohesive teams. So that's enough from me and the thinking around cohesive teams. What I'd like to do now is to pass over to Andy Thorne. We're all living these in our businesses. Andy, I met and had a fantastic conversation about how he's growing and developing his culture through his team activities. So, Andy, I'd like to introduce yourself and over to you.
Sure. No, thanks, Granger. Firstly, thanks for having me. This is great. Didn't know this existed, so thanks for having me along. And look forward to speaking with you all. So, my name's Andy Thorne from Factory Pattern. This is Factory Pattern here. There's more offices that way. So we're a digital agency in Cheltenham. At the heart of everything we do is user experience. So all we care about is someone's experience online, and if we can make our customers' experience good, then they grow as a result. And so that wasn't enough just to do it for our customers. We always wanted to make sure the experience at Factory Pattern was just as good, and we actually designed it in a way that we did things on purpose to make sure everybody has a good experience and a good time. So I think it's about 4 years ago, we went from about 3 of us to 5 of us. And something I noticed was that the certain points in time, we'd spend a bit of time chatting, but most of the time we were working. So we were always keen. So myself and my wife run the business, and we were always keen on building a culture, but I didn't actually have a clue how to do it. So basically what the way that we thought about it was, right, let's just have defined times. So we actually just set aside meetings to actually talk about stuff and just anything as well. But that at first was a bit kind of loose, and no one really knew what to talk about because they were all kind of forced together. So that didn't quite work. So the next thing we did was something that I really enjoy, and you guys might know about, is TED Talks. And I love just talks in general and hearing people and their experiences. And TED Talks is free to everybody. So we started TED Talk Tuesdays, where we basically down tools at 11 o'clock. We all gather in the meeting room and we watch a TED Talk, and it can be anywhere from 6 minutes to 12 minutes. And all we've got to do is sit together and watch that talk. And then what happens after is that we start having conversations. And I think the one thing that Granger's mentioned about that chemistry is how do you kind of build that chemistry, and it's in having conversations, but making sure that you've actually got time for them. And so TED Talk Tuesday allowed us to do that. So the TED Talks are great, but the most interesting bit was the talk after, where sometimes we talk about how a point from the talk, and we'd kind of all elaborate on that and kind of share our ideas and thoughts, and that allowed people in the room to get to know each other. And then sometimes we get to the end of the talk and just be completely confused and wouldn't know what the hell they were talking about. And that was also really funny, because then we just go off on tangents and talk about something completely different. But the point is, it always led to conversations, and so that was designed in. And then the next thing we did, so that was a Tuesday, and then we thought, right, well, we can't just do something on a Tuesday and kind of leave the conversations there. So then we introduced Inspiration Fridays. So Inspiration Fridays was stolen from a guy called David Hyatt, who runs the Do Lectures and Hyatt Denham. And basically the idea is that we all have different experiences, like online and just around us, and we need to capture them to be able to make really good observations and to share that with people. But because we all have different experiences, we can kind of share. If we share those with others, we'll be exposed to more things, and that helps us. And it's especially important for us because we're running a digital agency. Our clients expect us to be creative and have these ideas, and a way to kind of exercise that is share different ideas from different viewpoints. So every Friday we get together for about 20 minutes. I think that's at about 11:30. So we always do these in the mornings because our brains are still fresh. And we get together and everybody puts a link in a chat. So we've got a Google chat set up where everybody puts the link in there to what they want to share. And then everybody gets a chance to talk through their bit. Some people some people don't really like talking in front of people, especially with clients and things like that, especially if they're more introverted. So the benefit of this is it gives them the ability to kind of talk about the thing that they're sharing. And because they've been exposed to it and because they're sharing it, they're super excited about it. So without them knowing it, it gives them the ability to kind of practice presenting things. And some people just don't get the opportunity to practice that. So everybody shares something and we get this kind of shared experience. Everybody talks about it. And again, it leads to really interesting conversations. And then we make sure, and then that's that. So that's the Friday one. And then the one in the middle, because those two, like the TED Talk Tuesdays, sometimes people struggle to find the time for them. So sometimes people will kind of bow out of them if they've got a kind of deadline to meet or something like that. And then also the Inspiration Fridays, sometimes people can't find a piece of inspiration. They may not have found something that week, so they might bow out of that too. So sometimes those things it almost gives them a task to do. So we put one right in the middle, and it's on Wednesdays, and it's just called 11s. It is what it says. It's basically we just sit down for half an hour, 45 minutes. We make a cup of tea, and someone bakes something or just buys some cakes or whatever food they want, and they bring it in. We all share food and drink, and it's for 45 minutes, and that's super easy. And that's now, I think, everybody's favorite one. The TED Talk Tuesdays and Inspiration Fridays are the most missed. I think 11s are the ones that are never missed, which is quite interesting. So that one's a really good opportunity, again, just to talk about anything. And it's really nice because every week someone new gets chosen from, we've got a little pot with their names in, and they get chosen the following week to bake something and bring something in. Just that act of giving and making the tea, making the coffee, the little things, but they go a long way. And those three things have really helped us to build that chemistry. And when we did start it 4 years ago, because two of the team members that we've got from 4 years ago are still with us. And now we've gone from 4 of us then to, I think, 9, and we're just growing to about 10 or 11. And so it's really important to us that we have that, and it is keeping people here. One thing that we haven't actually done, admittedly, is kind of keep a score on like what that's doing or the kind of the effect on it. We've asked people their feedback over time, and we've tweaked a few things. So TED Talk Tuesdays, people prefer talks to be kind of 6 or 7 minutes. If we get a 20-minute talk, you can just hear everybody go, I haven't got time for that, and their eyes roll and all sorts of things. So if we do get one of those, we just play at 1.5 times speed, so we kind of cheat a bit. 11s we all seem to have a lot of time for, and then Inspiration Fridays, again, we just make that super easy and make sure that we just remind people, because sometimes they forget and all sorts. So they're the 3 things we do. We design them in purposely, and all they are just meetings, but they've become the most important bit to our company culture. So some things to, I guess, it all sounds great, but some things to watch for. So sometimes, like, it's always a difficult one, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this, as being the kind of the founder, the manager, the whatever of the company, and like kind of, you know, having that more casual relationship with your team members. And it's great, and we've always enjoyed it, but there's always that balance of kind of too much fun, and then it kind of changes the dynamic, or too much, not fun, that's the wrong word, too much kind of, I don't know, just the wrong type of chemistry. And if we're, I don't know, just joking and things like that, you've kind of got to still check yourself, because I'm the first that will try and crack a joke or things like that. So I've really had to kind of pare that back, and I'm really mindful of it when we're having our catch-ups and in the studio. Because what it can lead to, and what it did lead to at one point, was we've got an open studio. Everybody like shares desk space, and it led to a lot of chatter after. And so that starts eating into your kind of production time and starts getting quite loud. And feedback from some people was that they struggle to concentrate at certain points in the day. And so there's just something to watch for. But because we have that time with each other, we can just talk with the team about that and just be honest with them and say, look, we found this happens. And so we kind of have to respect each other's time and deadlines, and just make sure that when we do those things, we contain it in there and we don't get too carried away out here. So that's definitely something to watch for. So yeah, it's not all kind of rosy and happy and shiny. There are kind of dangers to it, but I think the benefits definitely outweigh those kind of minor negatives, and it can be managed. So that's the 3 things we do, and that's how we force culture into our company.
Thank you, Andy. I don't think there was any force in there, but you built it over time. That's the thing, through experimentation. That's what I loved about the story that we had when we were on our podcast and in talking about that.
Yeah, do you find sometimes that you have like louder stuff and they're going to take over the meetings, and you get the quieter ones to sit back, and what do you do to kind of get the quieter ones to pipe up a bit?
Yeah, so I'm definitely a louder one, so I've got to watch out for that. But because I can see the louder ones, I usually can just tame them a little bit, and I look out for the quieter ones, and just I can see that they want to say something, and then I just get a bit louder than the louder ones and ask them the question. So that's kind of how I find that helps, because they've ultimately got more interesting things to say than the louder ones. Louder ones are just fill in the gaps.
My question, and is thinking about, you talked about this level of chat that can build up. Does that build up post one of your 3 meetings, or is it something that just builds up because you've got that chemistry? I was just wondering. I
think it's built up because we got the chemistry, and it's good and bad. Like, so we're all, none of us work from home. We all work in the studio, and they all, we've never forced this, but they all go and have lunch with each other at the same time in like a sort of breakout room, and which is really nice to see. And that just kind of happened, but because they got to know each other. So that's like a real benefit, because they become really good friends. And that's kind of when you're going through your career, you are meeting people and making sort of, long-term friends. So that's been really good. But sometimes that means it has led to, it does get a bit noisy. And so we've had to have conversations a few times just to say that, we need to keep it down. We need to just make sure that we're kind of keeping on track and not getting too noisy. And I think as long as there's a few people around that know to kind of bring it back to work chat, then that kind of, it avoids the, we don't need to tell them off. It's just, have you got this? Have you done that? And all of a sudden it calms back down again. So that's kind of how we've learned to manage that without telling everybody to be quiet.
Where chat often is a positive thing. It just gets negative, interferes with work rather than...
Yes.
Yeah. Well, brilliant. Well, Andy, thank you so much
for
your thoughts of wisdom in terms of what you've done to build cohesive teams within your business. And I know you're about to grow as well, and you're going to the next level in the ScaleUp pillar, and you've got that challenge to come next of how do I create the team environment, but, with 12 staff in terms of doing things. So we look forward to hearing your journey.
That's the second talk.
Coming period of time. So yeah, brilliant.
Perfect. Thank you.
So what do we think about cohesive teams, and where are we with our teams? What have we taken away from the theme for this month that we think we should be learning or that we've taken out from it? So hey Matt, can I start with you? What are your thoughts on cohesive teams?
Right. I think it's a timely topic for me because we onboarded a new consultant 3 months ago, and so I tried to incorporate some of those principles in our operations meetings that we have monthly. We also have weekly Teams calls as well of the team. But I can see, but obviously we don't do anything in that kind of structured way. So I picked up some good ideas, and actually my question for this month is around that in terms of team members and how we onboard and how we bring in a new team member who's new to our processes.
All right. Good. Paul, what about you? What did you take from the theme?
We've had a little bit of an issue with it this week with cohesive teams. We've got a team member leaving us. He was due to leave today, but he kind of just decided he'd had enough midweek and walked out. It's a little bit of a surprise. So it has got me thinking about what we're missing. As with him out there, we have regular meetings and regular opportunities for people to communicate with us, especially obviously a lot of our guys are remote 95% of the time. So having communication can be a challenge. I think our issue is getting feedback, especially from engineers, when you give people the opportunity to speak and remain engaged and be involved with the communication process. Sometimes it's like getting blood out of a stone. I can find myself listening to a lot of my own voice. It's always a challenge to get things out, to keep that cohesiveness there, to get feedback from them until the guy that's leaving us evidently has got a load of frustrations built up, but none that he's ever communicated to us.
Okay. All right. So, Steve, I think you were nodding, smiling a little bit there, and some of the discussions we've had, I think you would probably recognise a little bit of what Paul said there.
Yeah, absolutely. We've gone from being quite a cohesive team to now a non-cohesive team, and I haven't been able to work out why. But I did wake up with the light bulb moment today. I had a discussion with our company secretary yesterday who offered a different sort of perspective on it. I think I've actually got to the root of the problem, and now I've just got to find a solution to it.
And what is that root?
Well, the root cause of the problem is that we've got two members of a three-man team that show strong symptoms of ADHD. Which leads them to procrastination and not being organised, basically. So our HR person has identified that in one of them before. So, and I think that is the sort of root cause of the issues that we're having within team members, and some of it's down to sort of anxiety, some of it's down to them just being disorganized and non-structural, etc. So I think we've probably got to the root of it, and now we just need to get to the solution.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Okay.
Good. David Lincoln Lewis, what are your thoughts on cohesive teams?
As you know, we've had issues trying to get teams or meetings, if you like, which I tend to relate similarly to a degree within our business because it's quite small, to be consistent, to be timely, and then to be fruitful, if you like, to use that word. I tend to find that accountability and the ability to be able to effectively feed back is the issue. It's almost like people need to have training to have meetings, cohesive meetings. It's not something that you organically learn, or organically good at when you're in a business. We've been working on the reorganisation of the workshop we've had 12 meetings now, and it's every Thursday, apart from the Thursdays we're not able to have it, which I'll talk about a bit later on. But it's interesting, the accountability side of things and people understanding what accountability means and the responsibility of accountability and the potential aspect of blame within accountability. And people saying, it's a really interesting one. Accountability tends to give people power, or perceived power, which they don't normally have within an organisation. I've got to do this for the meeting, and then it can upset the apple cart in the organisation.
Right.
I'm trying to say.
I see. Yeah, that's interesting. So if accountability is handled in the wrong way, it can actually, maybe have a little bit of a negative effect.
Well, it does, and then I'll build on top of that the ability to be able to effectively feedback. I think people are relating to that, but in a different way. As I say, it all seems to come down to people's individual understanding of what these terms mean.
Yeah.
What does cohesive mean? I mean, just using that as a word, everyone's got a different perception of it, and everything's really subjective. So, almost like you need to have training before you have cohesive teams.
That's a really good point. Maybe we'll look at that in a minute. David Lyons, what about you? What would you add?
Yeah, I think there is something. Paul mentioned about the remote people. And having people not in the office. We did obviously a survey a little while back. Across all sorts of staff members, and there was far more cohesiveness, if I want to use that word, and positive sentiment for people in the office than not. Now, obviously, some people choose to work from home, and that's their choice. So I could argue say, well, it's your own fault. If you want to be at home, then that is a consequence of you being in your bedroom, for 18 hours a day. So I think there is, what tools we use, how we do it. We have weekly team meetings every Friday. And I think it's important that we keep those up, across the organisation. I think your point about David about the word cohesive. What does that actually really mean? And accountability. We've had an ex-employee that took that accountability piece as being able to wield a big stick and dictate. And when we kind of surveyed on sort of exit, their view of their role was actually different to what our view of the role was. And taking that sort of, I've got a manager in my title, and therefore I can dictate or try and dictate, views and opinions and things like that. So I think, we talked about, employing people, slowly and far and fast and things like that. And I think that goes, that helps with that culture, that structure piece, really. It's not easy because one person can change, or, COVID or a situation can change, that sort of structure, really. Yeah. It's difficult. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
And life will be easy without people.
It would indeed, wouldn't it? And it would be nice. It would be nice if there was a simple tick box one tactic that suddenly magics cohesive teams forever. But unfortunately, there isn't. Not well. At least I haven't found it yet. So,
there
Chris,
is one.
Oh, is there? What's that?
Yeah. If you want something done well.
Get yourself.
Yeah. Well, it depends how cohesive you are with yourself, I suppose. Yes, but
well, that's a very good point, Kevin.
Good, Chris. How about you?
Well, we, as you are aware, did this employee NPS just for the benefit of everyone. We're about 17 people and remote workers. So just to give you a sort of an idea of what I'm talking about. In terms of the employee NPS, we all got a very strong, almost unbelievable score, which I was questioning with Kevin, is this right? There must be something wrong with how this has come through, because I obviously know what's going on in the business as well. So everyone seems really happy and loves the business, and there's a lovely culture, which is really good, but that isn't representative, in my opinion, of the reality. So it was a really good exercise to do, and we want to do it again and have it as an ongoing. We've learned from it, and there was output and feedback, which we're applying to improve the business further, because there was not just scores, there was comments as well. So it was a really good exercise. If anyone's not done that, it was something that Kevin provided to us to use. Sorry, Kevin, if I'm causing any problems for you.
No, not at all. Not
very
at all.
Expensive. Anyway, so yeah, we did that, and I thought it was a really useful exercise. I'm going to carry on doing that. We reckon we got the meeting frequency about right at the moment. And the sort of support, and we're increasing the number of things that we're giving and doing for the guys, so they're sort of all feeling quite loved. The problem we've got, so the SLT is really good, the senior leadership team is really good as well, and that's improving further. So there's a really good structure at the top. The problem we've got is that some of the older team members, older in terms of tenure, not age, so some of them are quite young, have been are getting a little bit difficult to work with. So we've got this slight angst between some of the teams. So they're very happy working in Chantry in their own little space, but they don't really want to work. It's a weird. So the cohesive bit that we're talking about is the bit that's actually broken, whereas everyone seems really happy as a bigger sort of picture team. Right. But the individual sort of relationships are causing a bit of challenge. We've worked out it's resource management, and it's not giving clarity to those team members and not managing them in an efficient way. I think it's come up before in previous calls, we know who it is that's the problem in the business. We're trying to work a way of fixing it, because we want to completely self-destruct our operational team and get all stroppy with them. And if I knew how to do it, I'd have done it a long time ago. So I'm trying to get some of the other SLT members to do it. But what was the other thing? Oh, and I think we're probably going to end up with some churn. We're really quite proud that we've had such a strong team for so long. And I'm not scared of churn, but I don't want it at the same time. There's no point in having churn for the sake of it. But equally, if they're not going to come and all play ball together nicely, we need to have churn. So that was, I suppose, the sort of climax of the comment. Really.
No, very good. Thank you, Chris. Louise, anything you wanted to bring in here?
Actually, just looking around and making notes on all the different conversations we've had, I think we've covered some of the really key things. It is about clarity. It is about understanding what's the meeting for, what's it about, what's our role within it, what does a term manager mean? I mean, it's you've all heard me say this before. I have a real bugbear about you promote somebody to the term manager and you expect them to behave differently the following day. They need training. So it is, we've covered a lot of the things I think that are really key to me, which is, understanding that we're all individuals, and therefore we need, as a management team or as the senior management team, need to have the flexibility to be able to manage people slightly differently within a structure, because you can't just put everybody in the same box and expect them to behave in the same way. So we have to have, there has to be a certain amount of flex within the structure, but there has to be structure. We do need to give training to people. People need to understand. We assume that, and I think David Lincoln Lewis, you said it, the different understanding of the words, accountability, responsibility, manager. We kind of assume that everybody knows and understands what they mean, but everybody has a different interpretation of them. Yeah. And it's making sure, that our thinking is all aligned and everybody has the same, not brainwashing, but at least everybody has the same understanding. You know, when we do the core values and core purpose, the core values, we always talk about this. It's a word, but then it has a description behind it, because a word by itself can be interpreted in a million different ways. So it is getting that. Yeah, David.
I totally agree with you. I mean, you probably know what I mean. I come from a massively blue chip corporate background where you'd have meetings for meetings' sakes. There was jargon, but you got a general idea of how those types of meetings worked. So when I come to a much smaller organisation that I have done in the last 10 years, it's quite a jolting experience. They look at you in complete dumbfoundment when you come out with some of these terms, which you consider to be generically normal, but they have no experience or background or any way of interpreting exactly what you mean. You know, it's the devil's in the text that you say. It's the bits between the lines, and that's the tough part. And I've spent a long time trying to get myself blue chipped, and then start again. So the issue is me, not just them. It's both ways. You know.
Yeah, it is. It's understanding. It goes back to the old hackneyed phrase that you know, communication isn't complete till the person receiving it has understood it. Yeah,
basically. And you're as good as that person. The fact you know all the words doesn't mean you're any better. You're better than them at doing the meeting, because obviously you're not. If you're not getting your message across, it ain't working.
Yeah. Can I just say to Louise and David, that was really useful, and I'm going to go and tell them what a deadline means and what accountability means to me.
Yeah,
that's all right.
There's a when I did my officer training in the Air Force, they used to have an acronym for when we used to do lots of little exercises in the training where you would have a leader and they would have to brief the rest of the team on what we were doing and all those sort of things. And there was a little acronym which was, it's a horrible acronym, SMEAC, SMEAC, right? So situation, mission, can't remember it now.
Engagement.
Anyway, whatever it was, but the last one, the C, I think it might be any question. No, it's situation. So this is a situation. This is what we're going to do about it. This is our mission. This is what we have to do. The E is the execution. That's the S. So situation, mission, execution. That's how we're going to do it. Any questions, A, and C, check understanding. So you don't just lead at any questions. It's then like, okay, so David, where do you need to be at 6 o'clock in the evening, or at 6:07, or whatever it might be? But you're checking out the plan. You're going back and making sure everybody says it back to you. Yeah. So that you've got it. And that's a really, I know I just struggled with the acronym, but actually it's stuck with me since, whenever that was, 1989 or 1990 or something. And it's a good little reminder to check understanding all the time on that communication.
Could you just say it once more? Sorry, I struggled to get.
Yeah, SMEAC, SMEAC.
Okay. What was the C? Check
understanding. So the situation is that we've got to evacuate these people from this location at such and such. The mission. The situation is we're under enemy fire. We're 2 miles behind enemy lines. The mission is to go and evacuate these people and rescue them by 6 o'clock this evening for the air evac or whatever it might be. The way we're going to do it is by you're going to go and do that. You're going to go and do this. We're going to go and do the other. All right. Any questions about what we've got to do? Brilliant. Now, Chris, what is it that we've got to do? What's your role in this? David, what's your role in this? Paul, what's your role in this? Yeah. And specific questions, check understanding. So any kind of briefing that you've got to do, it's a nice little way of just framing how you need to set about it. Good. So does anybody have any magic tip, anything that they think helps with that cohesiveness within their teams? Any tips that you think you've got working well that is helping? Yeah, Chris.
I know I just said that it isn't working well, but the things that we're doing which are working well, we got everyone together and we're doing 3 times a year a team fun day, effectively, right. And that's working well.
Great.
We keep offering team socials, team go out, and we get such there's no enthusiasm for it at all. They're kind of thinking, nobody's up for it a lot.
We get one of them to organise it, and it changes each time, and we make it something that everybody. They all talk to each other and they work out what they want to do. the finance guy does. They all then sort it out. They don't ever do what I want to do. I want to go go-karting. We've never gone go-karting. Every time I say, I'll organise the next one, no, you're not organising the next one. So it becomes a fun thing where they are in control and they've got a budget, which isn't very much, and we go off and do something. The travel of getting them all there, for me, is more expensive than the thing we do. The thing we do is really irrelevant. We did like some garbage golf or something. I don't know. It was like a junkyard and you played crazy golf around it, and we did something. We're shooting each other with laser guns in 2 weeks' time. It's stuff like that. I don't really get involved. It wouldn't be
and I think that's important, the distinction there that you've made, that they're organising it, not you, because there's nothing worse than a company organised event that you must attend. It's a social event to bond us all, and you must attend it, and you are going to come, Louise, at 10 o'clock in the evening, drive 20, 30, 40, 50 miles to come and do it. Yeah, absolutely.
There is an alternative way of doing it. The way that I take from corporate that works is you have a 2-part day. You have a Teams part in the morning where you discuss what's going on within the business, a couple of hours, and then the rest of the day is whatever it is. Where's not rifle range where we can reverse drive cars backwards or whatever it happens to be. Because a lot of people don't want to do it for various reasons. One, because they can't be asked, but there's a secondary one. They're scared. They're scared of going to social events. People don't go to parties anymore, so they don't socialise outside of being in their homes these days. So ultimately, if you can actually encourage people to be there for a work event, which then turns into a social event, it's easier to get people social when they're there than it is to try and get them in to be social.
Yeah,
that requires a bit more money.
They didn't all come to the first one, and then we've had different people coming to different ones. But now everyone's relaxed, and they all sort of. It's a really good point, David. They're all like, okay, no one's going to hurt me. It's all fun. Chris isn't in control of it. We'll come. So you end up with everybody coming then.
Yeah, that could work organically.
So picking up then on what David was saying, we obviously organise the 90-day planning workshops, for example. So whether you come to our 90-day planning workshop or whether you do your own 90-day planning with your teams, that's a great opportunity. We're now working hours so that it finishes at 1 o'clock. Essentially. So you've got that opportunity then to do something in the afternoon on the Friday if you wish. It could be that you further develop your action plans, or it could be that you go and go go-karting. But you've got that opportunity if you've got people together for the work bit, as David's saying, in the morning. You've then got the possibility of tying something a bit more fun and social in the afternoon. And the 90-day planning process, if you think about all the elements that are in there, it's designed largely to meet that cohesive teams pyramid and to get people trusting each other, talking things through, understanding each other, gaining commitment, gaining that clarity that Louise was talking about, and that alignment, that commitment to work on it, but also then the accountability, and then moving through into the results. But you've got that constructive debate within there as a really key part of it as well. So the 90-day planning approach is a habit that, if it's done over time and it's done well, helps with cohesiveness. I'm not saying it's the magic answer, but it helps. Yes, Chris.
I can't find the hand-raising tool in the stupid Zoom today, so I'm sorry. I don't know if everyone's going to get bored of me within half an hour. It usually happens at work anyway, but one of the things from doing the employee MPS, was that we ended up with a load of outputs, which the Smart90 has actually been doing the opposite for the lower team members. They're feeling like, what the hell are they all doing? Why are they not? We weren't sharing enough. So what we've now done is we've created, just to add to Kevin's point, the Smart90 is brilliant. We absolutely think it's the best thing we could have invested in. But because the rest of the team weren't feeling part of or weren't being involved in the discussions outputs, they were feeling like the SLT were off doing their own thing. So we now brief them. We have a call every Tuesday, which I never go on, which I should, like a connect call where they all get together and talk about their dog and their cat, and they put them in front of the camera and stuff. It seems like a complete waste of time to me. But anyway, on that call, there's now going to be a monthly update, which we did the first one, and it had really good feedback. So there was one of the SLT members built a sort of list, if you like, of stuff that we were working on, and then shared that. It was obviously edited so that it didn't involve things that would cause upset. But that actually really helped. So we took a screenshot of the good stuff from the Smart90 and shared that with the team in a structured way, and that's going to happen every month. So it's feedback. They said that in the NPS survey we did. We've then gone to them and said, we listened to you. Here's the first update, and it all went really well. So it was like linking it all together.
And there's a piece of magic. Well, maybe Louise is going to just say, well, Louise, go on.
I don't know whether I am going to say it, but it's something that I've always advocated. And in fact, I'm talking to 2 or 3 clients at the moment about bringing into play what I used to call the state of the nation, where you have a meeting with the entirety of the organization. I used to do it quarterly, and just keep people updated, make people feel that they're part of it. And again, you don't necessarily give all the information, but you have a situation where you make sure that people are updated and understand where we're going, what we're doing, the direction of travel, all of those different things. And you do it on a quarterly basis. So they get used to hearing the good stuff and the not so good stuff. And it becomes part of the rhythm. And I also found that what that does is it breaks down barriers. So as I was walking around the factory, for instance, somebody would feel confident enough to talk to me and say, we said that. Well, you would get much more engagement, not just on the day, but right the way through. And that encouraged then the flow of information up and down, and the flow of asking questions and giving answers, and making sure that everybody felt part of where we were going and what we were doing and how we were going to do it, and felt that they could input into that as well and influence it.
Great. And the other bit of magic that Chris mentioned there, I think, as well, is the closing the loop on the feedback, which might go back to what Paul was saying right at the beginning. There's not a lot worse than a company keeping on asking employees for feedback and it just seemingly disappearing into a void as far as the team members are concerned. So doing that bit of feedback that Chris mentioned, which is, this is what we asked you, this is what you told us, and this is what we're doing. So even just doing that, even if it's a case of, even actually there's not very much that you are able to do about it, or you're parking it for another point, you've got to tell people what you're doing. So you might be picking, so out of everything that came back, this seemed to be the top priority. So this is what we're addressing first, and we're doing this. And then some of the other things we'll look at next month or next quarter or whatever. But at least people then feel that they're involved and you're listening to what they're saying, as opposed to it going into a black hole.
Absolutely.
I have 10 seconds just to clarify. We had a big debate around whether we should be positive, because we always try and feed them positivity. And we decided that was wrong. So, Louise, you're so right. We've got a positive bit and then a negative bit. And we tried to be really realistic about it. And there was a big debate. This is not really my area, but other people in the team really sort of got this, and they embraced it, and they put that together. And I think that's really important, what you said about having the positive and the negative, because it makes it real.
Yeah.
Should it not be a sandwich of some form?
No, I don't advocate the shit sandwich, David.
but actually that comes back to me to the psychological safety, because you've got to have the environment where it's all right to point out when things are not right. Because if everybody feels that if they do that, they're going to get shouted down and talked over or punished in some way, then clearly you're not going to hear that feedback. Whereas if they understand that actually not everything is a bed of roses, sometimes there are things that aren't, and we need to deal with the thorns, and we're going to do it openly. That gives that trust level, which is the foundation of everything else moving forward.
You've literally just highlighted industrial switchgear's biggest issue culturally.
Right.
We got too much personality at the top. I mean, there's almost to a degree, but it's almost a situation where somebody gets a little bit upset with something. They don't deal with it with you. They'll go out and take it out on somebody else. Now, that immediately undermines that whole process a little bit. So there's sort of like self-education we need to do within our...
Yeah, and that's...
Because it's about trust.
Yeah, and that's a real, going back to us at the beginning, you can't change that overnight. No. And you just got to start to do little things that build that in, understanding each other's, doing the right things like the Net Promoter Score maybe, but feeding back anyway on what people are saying, giving that reinforcement of it, but listening to people, understanding people's motivations and styles, all of those things, good things with disc profiling. It's a really great place to start, actually. Have a bit of fun as well with it. And maybe even do that team charter exercise that I suggest in the booklet there, where you get people to talk about what's a good team look like and how do we behave with each other, and think about an example where you were part of a great sports team or part of a great social team or great group of mates or something in the past of being part of a team and achieve something. It doesn't have to be work, and highlight some of the good points around that as well.
Okay. It's okay for people in the team lower down to be not as capable, if you like. It's the senior members of the team that need to be really capable at this, because they cannot be seen to be almost like reactive in any way, shape or form, because they're showing, if you're reactive at the top, then basically the whole business will follow what you do. But if someone else in the team that's not you, for example, who isn't a leader within the team does it, that's an opportunity to develop that individual. But there's a perception you can't develop the people at the top. Once that mistake's made, it's made, and it gets hardwired into the organization. So that you need to have proper training on meetings and this type of thing as a senior management team to make it work. You can't, as a senior manager, if you like, you can't make the mistake. It takes 10 positives to change one negative when it comes to senior members in this team environment. But for somebody within the team who possibly makes a mistake or is in a development phase, that's understandable. It's understandable for them, but it's not understandable for you. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So just don't put them in and expect it to work. You have to really step back from it as well and be able to say, okay, well, we're getting this negative feedback. That's really cool. Do you know what I mean? Like what we're doing now.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.